Today is a beautiful day, everybody. We are talking quarterback player props for the 2023 NFL season. We're finally shifting away from NFL win totals and moving on to bigger and better things. But before we do that, Brendan, how we doing?
This is just more fun. I just love this a lot better, a lot more predictable than wins.
It is. I feel like there's a lot less variance when it comes to some of these player prop bets. So I'm very excited about it. I think we have some good ones to take advantage of when it comes to quarterbacks. So a little rundown. We're going to run through our individual player props that we like for the 2023 season pertinent to quarterbacks. And then at the end, we're going to give some of our favorites to lead both passing yards in the NFL and both passing touchdowns. So, we have those individual props, and then we have categories in which someone can lead the entire league in. So we're gonna save that for the end of the show and start off with individual props that we think we can really exploit based off of their set number and the odds and what book they're on. With that being said, let's get right into it. We got a handful that we need to get through. Brendan, start me off with something good.
So I'm gonna leave my last two to be last because they're correlated with each other. But my first prop is Tua Tagovailoa under 3,900 passing yards this season.
Nice. So can you give me the breakdown on that? If assuming he is healthy every single game, all 17 games, what is the yardage per game for that outcome?
230.
Okay, so he would have to have an average of less than 230 yards per game, given that he plays every single game, which, as we know it, is more than likely not going to happen either.
Right. So people are concerned about the concussion and the head injuries and all of that. But, I know Tennessee sprained his ankle in college. Like, he's had ankle issues, shoulder issues, and now the head issues. So this is solely – he's never played more than 13 games in the NFL in his career. He's had 3 seasons. 13 was his top number of games played. And I'm solely betting on him not playing all the games because in the Mike McDaniel offense, they can pass for 230 yards a game. Like, no problem. But I am betting on solely how you can't – like, all these props are basically if they play every game and they're healthy the whole season. Mm-hmm. Right. So, like, just think of it that way. Unders are more likely to hit than overs, even though overs are more fun. But I have my first one with Tua under 3,900 yards.
And that's a good point that I think deserves attention too. Is unders, statistically speaking, are more likely to happen, but nobody likes playing them. With betting overs, you get the rush and the enjoyment and the excitement of anticipating that a player will clear that number at some point down the road, down the timeline. But with an under, you're really just stuck with this anxiety that you're hoping that a player doesn't hit that total. And so I agree. Like, betting overs are 10 times more fun, and you're not left with this crippling anxiety every time a player, throws a big pass or throws for multiple touchdowns in a game. And so, but it deserves to be pointed out, unders are statistically speaking more likely to happen, and they're better and more profitable. And so a lot of these props are going to be unders, and that's just the way, that it has to be, because when we bet overs, we're kind of putting ourselves in a bad position. And so, especially with injuries, lump in the fact that, people get injured. That's just how it happens. And so it's unfortunate. I hope nobody gets injured in the NFL, but if we have an under and somebody does get injured, we cash out on that. So, I want to be on the side of favorability, and I don't want to, put too much in the pot on overs when that's really just not favorable for me in the long run. So that's a good point. That's a little sidebar. I really like that too.
Another thing I'll say is their offensive line didn't get significantly better from last year, and they don't have an amazing offensive line. Mm-hmm. It's not the worst in the league, but it's not the best in the league. And there will be this is so bad to say, there will be plenty of opportunities, I guess, for him to get hit and for him to potentially get injured. So I hope that doesn't happen, but that's kind of what I'm looking at with that number.
Right. And that brings us to a good point. So what it would take for Tua to clear the other over is he would have to play nearly all of the games. He would have to play, 15 at least, right?
Yeah, I don't think he gets there. I don't think he gets there if he plays less than 15.
Oh, yeah, you can. That would be a lot loftier of a number. And so now the flip side of this, now playing devil's advocate, the way he can get there is the sole purpose that he has Mike McDaniel coaching with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle as his wide receivers. So he does have that going for him. And with each of these props, we want to be fully transparent with how they can clear the opposite of what we think, and that's that case. So if you're bullish on Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and the fact that the Tua will play, then there's your answer. But again, I like the idea of your prop that Tua doesn't play all of the games, or they go through a bad stretch. Maybe Tua or maybe Tyreek or Jalen Waddle gets hurt too. So there's a lot more, dominoes that can fall our way when it comes to the under than the over. So I like your reasoning there. That's a good point.
I have to have one more thing to back it up. I was listening to another podcast, and I don't have any numbers here because I don't remember what they said, but statistically last year they're like neutral like game speed that they played at, and the plays they had per game was like league average. So they're not going to be playing like extremely fast, getting like 80 plays off or anything like that. So that's another one that I feel like would play into an under.
Yeah, and that brings me to my first quarterback prop. That's a good point. I'm taking Derek Carr under 3,900 yards on DK as well. I think that the Saints, they run a slow-paced offense. Dennis Allen is not some guy that's going to come out guns blazing. If they do stretch the field, it's going to be through Chris Olave. But, on the contrary, they have Michael Thomas, who's slant boy, and then they have a slew of running backs who are really going to be kind of the main focal point of this offense when, at least at the start of the year, and Alvin Kamara and Kendra Miller. So Derek Carr is not a guy who's really known to stretch the field vertically. That's just not his game. That's not his style of play. And Dennis Allen is not a coach that is going to prioritize dynamic offense. So I really like, and a lot of people will argue with this on me and say Derek Carr faces, the Saints in general, they face the easiest projected strength of schedule. Well, okay, let's say they do. If that's the case, then I'll argue that they run the ball more, or they play a lot more game management, or they play a game in which they try to control the clock instead of be super aggressive on the offensive end when their strong suit is their defense at home, especially. So sure, let's take that argument as well. They play the easiest projected strength of schedule. Let's say they score a touchdown. They're just going to control the clock, run the ball, and try and game manage the entire time. I don't think Derek Carr averages over 230 passing yards a game. He only did that a handful of times when he was with the Raiders. And that was a team that they were always down, it felt like. So I'm not confident in him stretching the field. Now, if he does, the bull case for Derek Carr over 3,900, he does have Chris Olave in Olave's second year. Olave is a vertical threat. He's kind of solidified himself as one of the league's top vertical threats from a wide receiver standpoint. So I can make the case in that instance where he does clear 3,900, but he would have to come out firing and have a much better year than he's had with the Raiders. But I think all things considered, I really like the under here. I'm not bought in on Derek Carr. I think he's going to be more of a game manager with the Saints. What do you think?
They're definitely going to run past their way all the way down the field. Mm-hmm. Especially at the beginning of the season, if Kamara suspended, Jamal Williams, 4-yard run. Jamal Williams, 3-yard run. Slant boy, 4 yards.
Exactly.
The whole way down the field. It's never been a Saints staple to just air the ball out, even with Sean Payton or anything. And their defense is really good, should keep them in games that I really don't feel like they won't have the Vikings-esque play like last year where they were always down and they're just airing the ball out.
Exactly. And, that circles me back to that strength of schedule thing. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're up, I don't see them as the team. Like, where's the Chiefs? If the Chiefs are up, they're only getting more aggressive. I don't feel like Dennis Allen is that coach at all. And so he had some years where, like, for instance, in 2021, he had a 4,800 yard season, but they were down constantly. He was airing the ball out, but other than that, I mean, he cleared 3,900 a couple times. Last year, he had 3,500. He did miss 2 games, which is very likely. So I think the recipe for this outcome points to the under, and it's more probabilistically likely to happen. So give me the under, put it on the board. I'm confident in it. Brendan, I'm excited for your next 2. You said they're inversely correlated, so I need them now. Give them to me.
It's just the biggest news of the whole offseason that no one talks about, except the Kellen Moore going to the Chargers from the Cowboys. My second one is Justin Herbert over 4,450 passing yards. A couple things here. First, Kellen Moore at the Cowboys ran a super fast pace, I think like they had the receivers to do it back then, not anymore. But Justin Herbert's a great quarterback. We all know. We know he was all banged up last year. Dude played with like one arm for like the whole year. He got hurt early in the season. He cleared that number. He cleared 4,400 pass yards. He had 4,700 last year. With who was their offensive coordinator last year?
Joe. He came from the Saints. What was it? Lombardi? Joe Lombardi?
Yeah, Joe Lombardi. And he's nothing like Kellen Moore. So I think the Chargers' pass rate's going to increase this year, and Justin Herbert's healthy this year. And he's got all of his weapons healthy with him. Whether that's Eckler, Gerald Everett, Keenan is supposedly healthy, and Mike Williams is supposedly healthy. And I think he clears this number by a lot. I think he could have close to 5,000 passing yards in this offense that I view this year with Kellen Moore. I mean, he could have had it last year if he wasn't hurt. 4,700 hurt the entire year. Playing in the offense that he did.
Yeah.
I also want to throw out there that the year before he had 5,000 passing yards, and the year before that he had 4,300 when he only played 15 games. I think this is the worst line ever. Like, they're asking to take money right there. Seriously.
You're really wearing that MVP pick on your sleeve right now.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I mean, they're in a hard division, but it's going to be a lot of shootout potential there also, being there with the Chiefs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all in on Justin Herbert too. He's an MVP candidate for me. He's an MVP dark horse. I think that they upgraded in all facets of their offense. Coaching, they upgraded. Wide receiver core, they upgraded. Offensive line, they upgraded. And, of course, they already have one of the best running backs in the league. So I see your point, and I'm like, that's a great pick, in my opinion. Assuming that he stays healthy and that they can protect him and keep him on the field, 4,400 is very much in play for Justin Herbert. And I mean, I agree. I think he can have a year like Mahomes had not too long ago, where he had over 5,000 passing yards. I think he can easily do that. This is a team that is not going to want to run the ball. They definitely favor passing over running. They have a higher passing rate over expectation than most of the league. So that's a good point. I've been a Justin Herbert believer since day one, since we saw him in his rookie year. I really had him last year as my dark horse MVP candidate, and unfortunately that rib injury took that down. But I mean, I didn't even realize he had that much with the rib injury amongst other things. I didn't realize he even did it that way. So
it's crazy.
That's crazy. It is crazy. So and now let's jump ship. You said this is inversely correlated with Kellen Moore coming over to the Chargers. You gave the Dak Prescott under 4,000. Let me hear it. Go. Let me hear a little bit
I'm
more.
just so down on the Cowboys, man. Mike McCarthy's going to be the play caller. Their like rate between like pass rate and rush rate is going to sway heavily to the rush rate. I feel like, and they're going to feed Tony Pollard a bunch with the O line they still have in the defense. So, I mean, they really don't have a lot of weapons either. CD's their only real weapon. Let's be honest. Dalton Schultz is even gone. So, like, they really don't have any weapons there. And there's been a lot of hate on Dak Prescott throughout the years of his NFL career. And I think he's going to get so exposed this year because he doesn't have Kellen Moore calling the plays for him. Truly.
Dang. That's kind of crazy because I've always believed Dak is better than what people give him credit for, but I'm also someone who agrees, Kellen Moore was a huge centerpiece to that Cowboys offense over the past few years. Mike McCarthy, I hate him. I will be the first to say I don't like him, but I have always believed in Dak. So that's an interesting take. I think Dak will have a chance to play a lot of keep up and air the ball out. But you bring in an interesting point. Dak has only cleared 4,000 passing yards twice in his career. And that's, assuming that he's healthy, can he do it again without Kellen Moore, who's definitely more aggressive than Mike McCarthy is. Mike McCarthy is old school. Aaron Rodgers has made it clear that he hated playing for him in the latter years. And so that's an interesting point. I think you're going to piss a lot of Cowboys fans off, but I mean, I'm just not a believer either. I like what you're.
It's severely underrated how much the play calling comes into like stats with the players, and like that sounds obvious, but people will just see like a really good player go to a different team, and like if they don't even look at how the play calling is going to be, the players don't call plays except for Aaron Rodgers, but there's the coaches are there. The coaches are there, and like the scheme that they want to run is what they're going to run, and the quarterback is there to run that scheme to the best of their ability. But I don't even think he's going to get a chance. Like with Kellen Moore, he can go over 4,000. He has twice in his career. Without him, I don't even think he has a chance.
Wow, man, that's a good point. And they're like you said it earlier too. They're missing a lot of key players too. Their offense is kind of lean. When you think about it and the nuts and bolts of it, their centerpiece of their offense is really going to be Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb. And, two extremely dynamic players, some of the best in the NFL. But after that, who's going to catch the ball? Like Noah Brown? No.
I don't know, man. Also, since his injury, he's run less. And like you might think that's a good thing because he won't take off and run, but he scrambles less. So it's like I don't think he's going to be. Now he's what? Is he 30 now? 29? Like I don't see him making these Mahomes like extending plays anymore. So,
Yeah,
not that he'll be in the first place, but I think he's not going to evade sacks to rip off some giant across the field, cross the body throw. Like he's just not.
And with that point, with Kellen Moore leaving, with Kellen Moore there last year, he was kind of on a decline in this past 3 years. I mean, 2020, he had the bad injury, but he had an 8.4 yards per attempt, 7.5 the following year, and 7.3. So he's really not stretching the field like he used to. He doesn't have a vertical threat anymore. So it only makes sense that, we expect the regression, especially with Kellen Moore gone. So that's not one I looked into. I'm surprised that I'm on board with that because normally I am a believer in Dak Prescott and I think he's a really great arm talent, but I think they'll feel the effects of Kellen Moore.
I think so. All
right, I have another one that's a little biased. Personal to me. Desmond Ridder, 2,500 passing yards. I think he goes over. And that's an average of 148 yards per game. I think that this is not Marcus Mariota. I think he's a way different player. They're going to rely way more on his arm. There's got to be some sort of regression to the mean here. And I think with with them being a contender, surprisingly, for their division, I think they're going to have to stretch the field a little bit more. And when you have guys like Drake London and Kyle Pitts, it makes it much more easier to get vertical. So naturally, over 2,500 passing yards on FanDuel, I'm taking the over. I think if he can just average 150 yards per game, which is extremely doable. It's almost crazy to think that a starting quarterback in the NFL can't do that. So he doesn't have the running ability that Marcus Mariota does. And I think that, I think books are being extremely conservative here with Desmond Ridder because they're expecting the Marcus Mariota outcome of last year. They're expecting the run game aggressiveness from Arthur Smith as last year. And I think Arthur Smith is going to be aggressive in the run game per usual. They just drafted Bijan Robinson. But I think they're going to open the gates up a little bit more. I think Desmond Ridder has a little bit better arm talent than Marcus Mariota. I think he brings a new element to this game. And I think that Arthur Smith really, really wants to utilize his weapons and Kyle Pitts and Drake London on the edge and stretch the field vertically and become more of an explosive team. I think that's, we've heard that from Arthur Smith. I think we can expect him to up his passing game aggressiveness a little bit more. And I think a total of 148 yards per game on average is way too low for a starting quarterback in the NFL.
I'll tell you this, just hold on. Comparatively to last year, so Mariota had 2,200 yards on 13 games.
Well, there you go.
Second of all, he only threw the ball 17 times a game. He only had 300 attempts. It's like 17 times a game. I think that they at least bump that up by 3. I think on average, Ridder will average like 20 pass attempts a game. And with that, that's 51 more pass attempts over the entire season if he plays the whole season. And that's plenty to cover, what was it, 2,500? Because Mariota was terrible last year, and he still got to 2,200 on only 13 games. So even if they don't change anything, they'll have 4 more games to get 300 yards.
Yeah, and they're not going to run Desmond Ridder. I mean, he's not really a running quarterback. I think that if they have Cordero Patterson, Bijan Robinson, and Tyler Algier, if they need to run Desmond Ridder, then there's a huge issue. I think they kind of have like a stable of running backs that will be just fine in the run game. So there's no reason to run Desmond Ridder unless it's like some tomfoolery going on and they need some trickery. But I don't think he's going to really be an asset in the run game. So with that being said, they're going to try and utilize his arm as much as they can when needed. And I think that leads to over 2,500, 148 yards a game.
Another thing that I just thought of, now that they can put CPAT in the like slot role or like move him around and stuff like that. Like they could have Algier, Bijan, and CPAT all on the field at the same time. I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities to manufacture passes.
And you're, don't be surprised when everybody sees a 31 set formation.
They could. They really could.
They absolutely will. I mean, I think that this is going to be really fun offense because at least me personally thinking I have, 2 running backs in the backfield and I have an H-back, like an offset tight end. And then if you have Cordero Patterson as that guy, for instance, you have to force your defensive coordinator into saying, hey, I want a linebacker to cover these guys, or I want to bring in a corner or a free safety off the side, the cover in the box. And then you open up either a receiver there or, somebody's uncovered inside of the box. I think Arthur Smith is going to get really creative with the talent that he has in the backfield. And I think ultimately that's going to lead to Desmond Ridder's success, assuming he stays healthy. Over 2,500, that's an egregious number for a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you earn that 31 formation like you're talking about, if they play action to Algier, keep him to block, and you have CPAT and Bijan running out of the backfield towards linebackers, I mean, it's going to be really hard to stop. So,
yeah.
Even if the A-dot's really short, like even if they only catch the ball 2 yards down the field, like they're going to be running forward with that. And so there'll be a lot of yards after catch with that. A lot of yak. Yak.
He doesn't need to really stretch the field, like screen it to Bijan, screen it to Cordell, and then occasionally throw a deep ball to Kyle Pitts down the middle. That's really a recipe for success in a division that's like one of the worst in the league. The Falcons can easily win this division. I think Desmond Ridder takes advantage of it. All right, I'm going to throw in an under to kind of mix things up here. Aaron Rodgers under 4,000 passing yards on Caesars. I know that really, I mean, the general public is riding Aaron Rodgers like nobody other. They think this is going to be an MVP Super Bowl year for the Jets. Now, I think the Jets are going to be a really good team. Contenders, maybe. Who knows? They have the defense for it. But I think that the coaching style here, and let's be real, the play calling is Nathaniel Hackett. Like, we saw what he did with Russ. It's going to be really Aaron Rodgers' show. So I think what's going to happen here is that they're going to really be a predominantly defensive team. And Aaron Rodgers is really just going to kind of do his own thing and play it like a slow ball kind of thing. There's just not going to be much tempo to this offense. He's going to want to try to read the defense, take his time, and really just drain the other team out and fatigue them and just try and out-stamina their opponents. And that's kind of what Robert Saleh wants to do, as we've seen. He's a defensive-minded coach. They have the weapons on defense. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So this is going to be a predominantly defensive-minded team who's going to be extremely slow-paced. We know that. Like, that's how the Jets were last year, and I'm not going to expect anything less with Aaron Rodgers. The only thing that we have to worry about is the explosive plays, because they do have really good receivers on the perimeter, and Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis and Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore's not on there anymore, is he?
He's at the Browns.
That's right. But nonetheless, he does have the weapons, and however, he does have the defense. And so I'm expecting more clock management, nothing fancy, no sort of coming back from behind. I think this is going to be a defensive will team, and Aaron Rodgers is going to kind of take the back seat in the passing game. I think that he's going to do what he needs to do, and then that's all that's going to be required for a win. What do you think?
You're missing the most important facet of this under. Is that there's going to be a huge quarterback battle with the Jets this year. You think Zach Wilson's just going to lay over like that? Come on. I think there was a tweet. He said whatever quarterback they bring in, it's going to be hell at camp. So you just wait, man. Zach Wilson could come out firing.
And we never know. The MILF hunter could be out there grinding right now.
No way. Is he the second draft pick or third?
Third, I think.
That's so bad.
He'll get a chance to start again, and I'm curious to how he responds and how he comes out after some adversity. But obviously, this is Aaron Rodgers' offense. But
no, he's just another Baker Mayfield.
You think Aaron Rodgers is?
No, Zach Wilson.
Oh, okay.
He'll get traded somewhere and just be another Baker Mayfield.
I was like, dang, that is a hot take. What? No. So are you on board with this under, or do you think that Aaron Rodgers can come out? And a lot of people, obviously he was a really highly bet MVP pick as soon as the trade happened, as we would expect. That's kind of, steamed down a little bit. But a lot of people are really high on him. And, I get it. He is a world-class quarterback and he's playing for a team that is actually a contender. But is this really the right setup to put up big numbers? I think not.
I mean, I think it'll be close. I mean, I think the Dak one will probably be close too, but no, I think that they're going to run the ball a lot. They got Breece Hall back. They have a young but decent line, as well as their defense will keep them in games. I just don't think that. I agree with what you're saying about him taking the back seat. I think they're going to win a lot of games. I think they're a double-digit team wins. But
I mean, okay, so Packers, they did pretty good last year. Aaron Rodgers did fine. But, he had 3,700 passing yards, and he started all 17 games. Mm-hmm. So we see that decline. we see that decline and we expect it to, and that like same, honestly, it feels like it's going to be a similar game style. It's not going to be revolved as much around the running backs as the Packers are with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, but it's going to be the same feel. We're defensive oriented, slow style, like just domineering type play. Let me control the clock. Let me control the flow of the game and keep the ball away from you. I feel like that's going to be Robert Saleh's preferred method of gameplay, and I think Aaron Rodgers, will agree to that. So, All right. I have one more over, and I hope none of you guys hate me for this. I kind of hate
how
myself.
many kids touched?
Almost. I really struggled with this because not a fan of this certain player and what he stands for. But Deshaun Watson over 3,500 passing yards. I mean, if he's playing all games, that's free money. I mean, a Kevin Stefanski led offense. Deshaun Watson has finally had a full offseason. Sure, still had some distractions, I guess, but he kind of got that out of the system last year. He's still catching some heat, but I think it's died down a little bit. I still hate the guy and what he stands for, but I can't ignore the fact that he's still a really good quarterback, and he is surrounded by amazing weapons, a good offensive line, and a great play caller. I know that this team really seems like it's going to be one that runs the ball more often than not, but Deshaun Watson has the chance to really come out here and light up the scoreboard. And I think that 3,500 passing yards, which is like 220, like a little less than 220 yards per game. I think that's very much in reason. I think that, with his surrounding cast, I think he clears the over. That's over 3,500 on BetMGM. Brendan, are you a believer in Deshaun Watson?
I'll just say this. In the 4 years that Baker Mayfield was there with Kevin Stefanski, he cleared his first 3 years. He cleared that number. And the last year when he only played 14 games, he only had 3,000 yards. But if Baker Mayfield can do it, I think Deshaun can do it.
That's crazy.
That's pretty much all I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. 3,500. I mean, that's too low of a number if he makes it the entire year. Like that number is pretty much baking in that Deshaun's going to miss time. And, very much likely, as we know, running quarterbacks are more at risk with getting injured. But let's assume he plays 15 games of the entire year. There's no way he doesn't make that number,
I don't know if he's going to run that much.
Yeah, he didn't run that much last year.
I mean,
comparative to the Texans, the seasons he had at the Texans, he did not run much at all last year.
Yeah, well, the Texans were behind all the time. Like, he had to scramble. They didn't have a good line or anything. And Browns have a solid offensive line. They have Sir Nicholas Chubb to run the ball for him. They don't need him to run.
And their wide receiver core is kind of underrated. Amari Cooper, given. Donovan Peoples-Jones, good. Elijah Moore is there. Dude's low-key kind of a stud. He's just kind of a bitch about a few things, but he can play ball. Cedric Tillman, dog. Cedric Tillman's a dog. He'll be an instant starter. Just give him fall camp. You'll see. Marquise Goodwin, speedster. I mean, David Bell, that he was a rookie last year. He had a lot of promise. I think he still has a chance to make himself known and get himself out on the field. They just signed David Njoku, coming off a really good year last year. I hate it. I hate it that I love Deshaun Watson so much in terms of player props and fantasy. I think he's going to ball out this year. I think he's got the perfect setup. And as much as I hate the guy for what he did, dude's going to put up numbers, and I can't deny that. If he's healthy, he's putting up numbers.
Calm down, man. It was like over a year ago. It was like 2 years ago. It's fine.
I still can't get past it, dude. That's not a coincidence. 30 different rape charges. It's not a coincidence. But the Browns, I'm a believer in the Browns, so that's why I'm a believer in this prop. I think the Browns are actually going to be Super Bowl contenders this year. Laugh at me all you want, but they're going to win over 9.5 games. We talked about that in our show earlier this year. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I'm a believer, and I think you should be too. That's all of the individual player props we have. Let's move on to the league leaders. Brendan, I'm going to tell you something.
What?
One of my favorite picks for leading the league in NFL passing yards was one of your individual player prop picks. I think Justin Herbert at plus 700 is, one of my good picks, and I think Joe Burrow at plus 800. Now, I put these here to mention first because these are givens. If I were to pick right now, like not accounting for odds or anything, somebody just walked up to me on the street and was like, "Hey, who do you think leads the league in passing yards this year?" My two favorite picks are Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. I think they're set up for success with their offensive lines and, of course, their receiving core. It's amazing. They're well set up, better than anybody else in the league, especially Herbert, who just has a offensive coordinator who's willing to be aggressive and test Herbert's limits. Now, we're not accounting for odds. And that's one of the most important things when it comes to making these types of bets. I think the quarterback with the best odds on this category to lead the league in the NFL in passing yards is Geno Smith at 30-1. I think he is going to take another step up this year after signing that contract. They drafted a rookie, Jackson Smith-Njigba. They added him to the core. They upgraded the offensive line. They added Zach Charbonnet at running back. I think that Seattle takes another step in the right direction, offensively speaking. Seattle was 7th overall in passing rate over expectation last year, and they only added weapons. They only continued to make improvements. So unless they play absolute boomer ball, Geno Smith will take another step forward. And I think that his odds at 30-1 to lead the league in passing yards, when their defense is still struggling, they're going to have to be throwing the ball a lot. Give me those odds. Give me those odds all day. I will put my money on it any given day of the week.
I kind of disagree. Strictly just because, I do disagree. Strictly because he played all the games last year, only had 4,200 passing yards, and I think he'll have to get to 5,000 in order to do that. I know that's the whole point of a long shot. I think he can do it. All right. I will say another thing. I think that they have a really good offense. Like their receiving core is good. Their offensive line's better. Oh my God, I'm blanking. Kenneth Walker
and Zach Charbonnet
and I just think that they're going to be able to move the ball without. I mean, they might get in some shootouts, but I just think they're going to be able to move the ball fine.
I think it's like the reason I like it so much is it's one of those perfect situations where you have an offense who is only getting better and their defense isn't really keeping up with that progress. They're still middle of the road, mediocre type defense. So they're going to have to continue to air the ball out. It's not going to be one of those teams who has great offense and great defense where you get up early and then all you do is just run the clock out, run the ball over and over, pound the rock until you pretty much just dry the other team out. I think the Seattle has that perfect combination that allows Geno Smith they're going to need him to air the ball out a little bit. And I think about this too. Think about the teams that they are going to play twice all year. The Rams, the Cardinals, and oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, the 49ers. Now, the 49ers aren't ideal, but Rams and Cardinals, you get them twice. And, let's say that two of those games are competitive. Well, both of those defenses are not good enough to really stop them, so they're going to have to air it out. And I think that I like having that, they do have a soft schedule, all things considered, including their divisional opponents. So I like Geno Smith. I think the reason I picked him out was I think he's got all of the components that would push a player to be, push a player that's not named Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Josh Allen to clear and lead the league in most passing yards. So that's my bull case for Geno Smith. Thank you for my TED Talk.
It's just really difficult for me to. I understand the fun and the reason they're a long shot is because they're a long shot. Like it's not supposed to happen, but I really struggle with picking like long shots at that when Patrick Mahomes is throwing for 5,000 passing yards every single season.
Yeah, and
It's just like
that's why that's why I put those two guys ahead. I was like, hey, if somebody's coming up to me, coming off the street, and it's like, hey, life or death, give me a player that you think is going to lead the league in passing yards. I'm going to pick one of Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow. And so, or Mahomes, obviously. That's like a safe bet too. But we can't really exploit odds when they're the highest favored guys and the most like expected players to do so. Does that make sense? I'm not gonna, put a lot of money and put all my eggs in one basket. And when in reality, there are guys who have not the same odds, not the same probability to do so, but maybe they're more probabilistically likely to hit that benchmark than the odds that Vegas is implying. And so that's what I see with Geno Smith. I think he should be more like 15 to 20 to 1 to lead the league in passing yards. 30 to 1, I think, is a little bit of a stretch for him considering the situation at Seattle. So that's what I mean by dark horse. So that's what I'm trying to find.
Then I have one.
Let me hear it.
Matthew Stafford.
Really?
Only because of his 4,800 yard season 2 seasons ago.
See, the only thing that worries me is like he's kind of decrepit right now.
I mean, all reports are saying that he's healthy. I mean, healthy for however old he is. How old is he? 35?
And I think he's a little older.
He was 34 last year. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I mean, as far as like stuff over like 20 to 1, that's mine. He's just gonna throw the Cooper Cup every single time. And Tyler Higbee.
And they will be down. They won't be winning games.
They will be down. They're gonna win like 5 games this year. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Now, really dark horse pick. Lead the league in passing yards. And everybody, like, this is going to be kind of weird saying this out loud, but give me Lamar Jackson at 50 to 1 to lead the entire league when he has the best pass catching core in his entire career, and he has the best offensive coordinator in his entire career, all in unison. And he's motivated. He just came off that weird year with the contract like situation. I think he's going to be extremely motivated. He's extremely confident in himself. He's got all of the weapons that he needs. Play calling is going to be boosted immediately. And I think that they're really going to rely on his arm a lot more. And I think that teams aren't going to respect his arm, as much as they need to. What they're going to do is they're going to load the box up like they typically do. And
there's no way
Lamar Jackson and I think they do. I think they have to. I think Lamar Jackson's running ability is going to force them to stack the box and respect his legs. And with that being said, when they do that, Lamar Jackson will exploit that secondary. Now, if they don't, then Lamar Jackson will have to exploit them on the ground. But I think that, one or the other's got to happen. And I think he takes advantage of it both. And I think that taking it 50 to 1 when Lamar Jackson is going to air out the ball this year. Absolutely.
That's fair. I'm good with it.
50 to 1. I'll take it. I'll take it, baby. MVP. Lock him. Put him on the board. All right. Is that it for passing yards leader? You got any more?
No, I don't see anyone else. Josh Dobbs, maybe.
Okay.
But
well,
other than that, I don't think so.
Yeah, our hero. All right. Last category for quarterbacks: passing touchdown leader. Who leads the league in NFL touchdowns this year, and what do you consider a dark horse? Now, I will say this. Obviously, the guys we've mentioned are a given: Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, We know that. That's not new information. Of course, we could sit here and hammer the bell and try and, reel in clicks by posting, oh, I think Joe Burrow is going to get the most touchdowns this year. Well, no shit, of course. That's why he's like the league leader or one of the league leaders in odds to do that. We're not doing that. We're looking for odds and how do we exploit, simple probability and exploit these market odds based on so. And I will do a flag plant here on my man Jared Goff at 32-1 to lead the league in passing touchdowns. And it won't be sexy, not by any means. He definitely won't be close to leading the league in passing yards, but I think he has a chance to lead the league in passing touchdowns because this team, we saw their offense do well last year. I think they're, slowly getting better. Depending on like how the Jameson Williams situation is going to be weird, but they had a Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think that their offensive line is beefed up. It is a top 3 offensive line, statistically speaking, and just using the eye test, they dominate. Jared Goff has a chance to take advantage of a weak division. The Packers finally don't have Aaron Rodgers. The Bears, still a toss-up. I mean, their defense is so shitty. It's like, hurts. I mean, their offense can be great, but their defense still sucks. And then the Vikings, I think they're going to regress from last year. Last year was an absolute fluke, double-digit wins. Yeah. I don't think so. And so the Lions are going to have a chance to play a soft schedule, and they're going to have a chance to really take their offense to the next level, and Jared Goff may have a field day, statistically speaking. So 32-1 to lead the league in touchdowns for a guy who's really his odds, probabilistically speaking, should be around 25-ish to 1. So I like it. I'm going to take a chance and throw a dart, take a long shot with Jared Goff at 32-1. That's my flag plant. Beach, who's your passing touchdown leader? Give me a dark horse.
My dark horse one. There was an addition to the Vikings last year in TJ Hawkinson. Oh, man. Hold on. I just want to see comparatively. No, dude. I'm trying.
It's
to
fine.
Find,
there's no shame in saying like I don't see anything on this board that appeals to me, other than the guys who are
anything, honestly
obvious. And that's my only one. Jared Goff is my only one because I don't see anything else outside of him that I'd be willing to take a risk on. So, I get it.
It is so hard. That's what she said. I don't know, man. I just someone's obviously going to have to eclipse 40, I think, to do it.
Oh, yeah. Especially with the extra game format. I
don't know. I think Herbert for everything.
I love Herbert this year, too. That's a great way to end the show. Just Justin Herbert over everything. Put him on the board. All right. BJ, appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening. This was a fun segment. This was quarterbacks this week. Next week, we will be moving on to pass catchers. So this will kind of be an all-encompassing show, including wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. The following week, we'll do running backs specifically with rushing props as well. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening. We hope you come back next week. See you guys later.